You know the saying, it takes a village? Well, here at Travel Mom Squad, it takes a squad to make the magic happen. Today, we're going to introduce you to three other members of the squad: Megan, Traci, and Claire. Welcome to Points Talk with the Travel Mom Squad. Hey, I'm Alex.
And I'm Pam, Alex's mom.
And I'm Jess. Let's talk points. So, we know that you are all familiar with the three of us, but you may not know that we have three amazing women and moms who help us so much behind the scenes. So, we thought it would be really fun for y'all to get to know our team TMS members today. So, we are going to start out with Megan. So, Megan, welcome to the show again. Megan,
Hi.
this is what, your like third or fourth time being on our
Yeah,
show?
I know. I was like, I feel like I know what I'm doing now.
So, Megan, first tell us about your role at TMS, what all you do, and how you got started with points and miles to begin with.
Okay. So I am the digital business manager, which is kind of like I put all of the things that I do into ChatGPT and was like, what title would this be? So I help with the back end of the business. I help with I do like our email card consultations. I update our card pages. I stay on top of the offers when they change and try to keep the list of what we need to update after that. And I'm kind of here as like a sounding board for advice, or if you need like a tiebreaker.
Or we need a mom to tell us where we need to go and what we need to be doing.
Yeah, so I like keep the train
Megan's
moving.
Megan's the responsible one here that keeps us focused, keeps us on track.
Megan is like our group therapist. I feel like we go to her and we're like, Megan, what should we do about this? Megan, like, I don't know. I just feel like she's kind of our catch-all.
Yeah, and like
She does, yeah.
and I've done this for other businesses, so like this isn't like my first time doing this. So I feel like I bring a lot of like unique experience to the team from working in other like online businesses in different capacities.
And she
It's
travels
funny
with
because
Points the Miles all the time, too. So, I
So it's
mean,
a
it's not, I mean,
bonus.
she does a lot of trips and a lot of family trips. So she's got really great insight.
Megan is actually the first person we ever brought on. And so she's been with us the longest out of the three. She's what, a year and a half now,
Yeah.
Megan? Is that right?
Yep.
So a year and a half. She is actually one of our students. She invested in a War Travel Academy and then in Next Level when that one came out. But that's not like, how long have you been in the Points and Miles
A
world?
long time.
Yeah.
So Tim and I took our first trip on Points and Miles in 2014. So we each opened the United Mileage Plus card and got like 80,000 miles, and we were able to book round trip flights to China. And we did 2 weeks in China, and he had a whole bunch because he was in the military. So when he would stay for trainings, they would put them in hotels for like months at a time. So he racked up like all these points by just putting he wasn't paying for it, but he put his loyalty number on that room and earned all these IHG points. And we basically had 2 weeks of free hotels all over China, just with those points. Like, it was so easy. And I kind of got into it. My brother actually has been doing this like since he got out of college, and he is like way beyond me. Like, he is like so tedious and like keeps track of every little detail and like maxes out all of his bonus categories. So I was kind of like, well, if he's doing it, I can do this. And like, I want to travel, and this is like how we can do it and be able to afford it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But it's safe to say that even though you've been doing it since 2014, something called you to enroll in our courses. And I think you've mentioned that like you did. It's not like you already knew everything. Like you
Right,
did. They were
exactly. And it
worth
was
the
like,
investment. And
yeah, it was like I knew how to do it and I knew the basics, but I felt like I wasn't doing it to like the max capacity that I could do it.
right.
And then, and like we had 3 kids in a year and a half. So we took some time off from traveling just because it was impossible. And once COVID happened, I was like, well, we're sitting at home. We're doing these like home renovation projects. Like, why don't I just start like researching on how to do this? And then like, that's how I found Travel Mom Squad. Well, Alex originally, and then the course.
That's awesome.
Well, and people, when they hear you say, I had 3 kids in a year and a half, Megan has twins, if you didn't know.
I'm glad you
Yeah.
clarified that. That sounded crazy.
That explains how that
Yeah.
happened.
My
But
oldest was 18 months old when the twins were born. So now they're 9 and 8, and we're just living our best lives because there's no big kid thing, so we can take advantage of all the school breaks, and they still want to hang out with us. So that I'm like, let's take advantage of this while we can.
All right. So, what has been, I know you've been on many trips, you've shared a couple of really big ones as podcast episodes with us, but what has been your favorite points and miles trip to date?
So I had a really hard time choosing. So I actually asked the girls and I was like, what has been your favorite trip? And all three of them said when we went to Hawaii and Australia, they were like, we need to go back to Australia. We want to do that again. And so we did 2.5 weeks between Hawaii and Australia. And it originally started out, we were like, oh, our 10-year wedding anniversary. We're going to go back to Hawaii because that's where we went for a honeymoon. And we're going to take the girls to see all the things that we did. And then I was like, well, now I have all these points and we're already halfway to Australia. We might as well just continue the rest of the way and
If
do our
you
trip.
know, if if you know Megan, then that is like her to a T. We're already halfway there, or oh, we're already this or already that. Like, let's just expand. And it's so funny as like we've gotten to know you more. Like that is you to a T.
And it's just like how it just starts spiraling. And then Tim's like, where are we going and why are we traveling for 2.5 weeks? And I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, just put in your vacation time.
What time of year was this? Like,
It was
were the girls
February.
in
So we went
school?
over February break, like that President's Day
Okay.
week. And then we extended like 3 days before and a week after. And like my kids were
Nice.
only in first and second grade at the time. So their teachers were like, have a great trip. Like, that's so amazing. Like, nobody even blinked about it. So we flew United to Maui and we only used 22,500 miles on United, which from my small airport, like we had two layovers on the way there, but from my small airport, like that's an awesome deal.
Yeah.
And then we
So
spent,
Megan, tell them where you're located. Where
oh,
are
we're
you
in
located?
Rochester, New York. So we're in
Okay, so
upstate.
was that out of Rochester then?
That was out of Rochester on United.
Nice.
And yeah, so it was a really great deal. And we spent 5 nights at the Hyatt Regency Maui, which my kids think is like the best hotel in the whole world still. So they want to go back. And then we did 2 nights at the Hyatt Centric Waikiki. And all 7 nights in Hawaii were on points. And we, like Tim and I had already done it. So like we did like Pearl Harbor and then we just went and had a character breakfast at Aulani. So it was like, oh, so we can just do Aulani, not have to pay the big dollars and stay for free and be able to do all of it at once. So then from Honolulu, we flew to Sydney and we use British Airways Avio since they're a partner of Qantas. And we only use 25,000 miles a person to fly from Honolulu all the way to Sydney in economy.
How many
And
hours is that, Megan, from if you
it
get
was
go
like
to
12
from Hawaii?
hours.
Okay.
It was a long flight.
Yeah.
And like we crossed like the international date line and the equator like at the same time. I was like, guys, like you don't know how cool this is. Like and so then once we landed in Sydney, it's similar to like Europe where a lot of the hotels it's hard to fit a family of 5 in one room. So
Yeah.
we booked a lot of like more boutique-y type hotels that had family room options. And probably the best one, in my opinion, that we've ever stayed at was the Taronga Zoo Wildlife Retreat. And that is like inside the Taronga Zoo in Sydney. And our room like overlooked the koala habitat. So like you opened our windows and there's like koalas just like right outside. And like breakfast was included. You got like free back behind the scenes tours of the zoo. It wasn't that expensive either. It was just such a unique experience that like it was like a once in a lifetime. It was so cool.
That's awesome.
So from Sydney, we went up to Cairns, and so it was like a 3-hour flight on Qantas, and we just paid cash. It's kind of like similar to anywhere else, like country flights were not that expensive. And from there, we drove an hour north to Port Douglas and spent 3 days there. And we snorkeled in the Great Barrier Reef. We went to the Daintree Rainforest, and like this was like my kids' like first time ever snorkeling, and I'm like, oh, the Great Barrier Reef, like this never would have happened if we didn't use points. Like
You're setting the
There.
bar pretty high there.
Yeah,
She
they are
set the
really.
bar very high for family trips. I'm thinking I want Megan to plan my trips. I mean, this just gets better and better. She does everything. She's like a Jess in planning out excursions. I'm like, you could do another business on the side, but you can't leave us. So, but yeah,
She
pretty
cannot
amazing.
do another business on the side. She
I
she's
think
our
she
unless
plans
it's
are amazing.
I know, I know. She should have like a little travel agency on the side, but it
Like,
can't take up too much time because we need her.
don't worry. I don't really want to do this for other people. I like doing it for myself because it's so time consuming. It's so time
It is.
consuming, and I get
It
so
is.
into it that I'm like, I don't even know how I would do it for other people because I feel like I would only be able to do like one trip a month.
Yeah, for sure.
But all right, so from Port Douglas, we drove back to Cairns and flew to Melbourne, and we spent one night at a Hyatt. We actually got a Hyatt place there, and technically the room only fit 4 people, but I had emailed the hotel ahead of time, and they were like, "No problem. Like your kids are young. Like
Mm,
you can all stay in the same room." And we were able to use
nice.
points there. And then we woke up the next morning and drove the Great Ocean Road, and we did went all the way out. We did 12 Apostles. We did a whole bunch of stops. We saw like kangaroos and koalas in the wild. Like that was so cool. And then we stayed like overnight, like at the end of Great Ocean Road. And then the next morning, like drove back and we did the Phillips Island Penguin Parade. And then we flew home the next morning on United, and it was only 40,000 miles. And that was like a 14-hour flight from Melbourne. We flew to LAX, and then I think we might have had a layover in Chicago, and then we were back in Rochester. So all the way back to my tiny little airport, all on United miles.
Wow. That's amazing. Australia is also one of my favorite trips I've ever done. So this is all and we did a lot of the same things. And so it's making me want to go back.
Yeah, I love Australia too, but I like to try fly business class. It's hard to find business
It
class
is.
to
It
Australia
is.
and Zealand. It is not easy. It's gotten harder. So as we've been talking, I'm going, can I do economy? Because I really want to go back. But
It's
that's
really
why I
long.
asked you how far it was from Hawaii. I thought, oh, please tell me it was like 7 or 8 hours because I could do that. I'm not sure I could do 12. So I guess I got to just
Yeah.
keep looking.
All right. So speaking of, we know what your points and miles travel style is, but other people don't. So tell us about your points and miles travel style.
All right.
So what do you normally prioritize when it comes to points and miles? I'm going to guess you prioritize flights, but you can
Yes.
tell us.
So with 5 of us, I find flights to be my best value. Because even if we want to go to Europe, we can find hotel rooms for $100, $200 a night. Even if we need 2 rooms, that's still not crazy. But when you're booking 5 flights at like $1,200 a person round trip, it's I love Air France and KLM. Like they have been just the best deal. The 25% discount for kids is like super helpful because all my kids are still under 11. And it's basically like buy one, get 4 flights free. Because even though the taxes and fees are high, like you're still saving thousands of dollars on those other 4 flights that you're getting for free.
Right.
But yeah, so we prioritize flights. I'm not afraid to stay at like non-points hotels. Like I am almost never trying to get a trip completely on points. Like I will use them where I can use them, but if not, I'm just like whatever. This is the money we save every month for our travel budget, and that is what that's going towards, and that's totally fine.
And I know that you tend to fly mostly economy, but
Yeah.
recently your husband flew business class. And
And I've
now he's
spoiled
kind of coming
everybody.
and now he's kind of coming over to like the travel mom squad style of travel, it seems like.
Yes. So we do mostly fly economy, but since we live in upstate New York, we can drive to Toronto and get really great flights to and from Europe. So our last trip, we flew economy there, but flew business class home on KLM. And then we're doing the same for spring break in April. We're going to fly economy there, then business class home from Croatia. And Tim was like, we can go on this trip only if we're flying business class on the way home. And I was like, well,
Oh,
challenge accepted. Like,
oh.
We that has happened that happened to me also. I was like, "Okay, I'm so excited to fly business class. I'm going to like get it out of my system." And then I did it and I was like, "Okay, now I really only ever want to business class." So it is a struggle to kind of try and balance it, especially with a family like
mhm.
I want to fly business class, but I also don't want to use like all my points on one trip. So we tend to do the same thing. We're like we'll do one leg in business and one leg in economy. But yeah, that's so funny. Okay, so last question is tell us about your next trip on Points and Miles, where you're going.
So my oldest turns 10 in January, and we've always promised the girls that like when you turn 10, you can pick where we go and kind of like pick the highlights of what we're going to do. And so she really wants to go and do all the Harry Potter sites. So we're going to fly to Scotland. We're going to Edinburgh. And we leave the day after Christmas. So we'll be away over New Year's. My kids have 2 weeks off for Christmas this year. So that's super helpful for planning a trip. I love traveling that time of year because their Christmas markets are still running, but it's not before the crazy of Christmas. Like it's like, okay,
Yeah.
Christmas is over. I will hopefully have like the tree taken apart and we'll be able to leave that like next night and not have to worry about anything. So we're gonna go to Scotland and fly into Edinburgh up to Loch Ness, and we're staying in like an old abbey that looks like Hogwarts. It's founded on Airbnb, and then we're going to take the train to London and we're going to spend 4 days in London and we're going to go see the Cursed Child play. And we're going to go to the Warner Brothers studio tour like Alex did with her family and kind of do some of the things in London that we didn't get to do the last time we were there.
I mean, that's pretty incredible that a 10-year-old can say, I want to go see all the Harry Potter sites. And you can be like, okay, great, done. Let's go to Scotland. Let's go to
Exactly.
Edinburgh and Loch Ness and in London. And like with my family of 5, and this is totally doable thanks to Points and Miles.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I have
like,
a question, Megan. If you didn't have points on miles, would you have even entertained a trip like this?
no. I mean, maybe, but we wouldn't have gone on all the other trips we did this year. Like, it would have been like
Yeah,
that one trip.
that the only
And
trip.
that's
Yeah.
gonna yeah, like, we would still travel, but it would be, like, one big trip a year. And, like, this year, counting that trip, we're gonna have, like, 6 or 7 weeks of family travel this year. And, like, most of that is on Points and Miles, and it wasn't, like, little trips. Like, we went to Japan and Korea, and then we went to Italy in the Olympics this summer, and, like, the girls and I took a road trip, just the 4 of us, and we all of our hotels were at Hyatt's for free. It has just opened up a world and kind of, like, enabled my, like, travel habits.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that you've gone to so many places. And like I've said before, Megan plans the funnest trips for her family. She must really do her research. I am amazed at the things you've done and that you've taken 3 little girls. They're like triplets. If you see her pictures,
They do.
because you're so close in age, they're just like little triplets. You see,
Yeah, we
it's
get
just
asked
so
that, like,
cute. But
once a week.
what a great life you've managed because of Points and Miles to show your girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really been incredible, and, like, I just am just so happy that we're able to do it, and even if we were able to do 1 trip a year, I think it would still be totally worth it, like
That is awesome. Well, Megan, thank you for being here. Thank you for everything you do behind the scenes for Travel Mom Squad. You're never allowed to leave us. And we appreciate you so much. So yeah, thanks again. All right, so we're back with our next behind the scenes Travel Mom Squad team member. This is Traci. So Traci is our most recent addition to the TMS team. I don't know, TMS team. We just brought her on a couple 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So very recent. So she works part-time for us. Traci and I actually used to work together. I'm slowly bringing her over to the Points and Miles side, but for now, just part time. So, Traci, tell us more about your role at Travel Mom Squad and how you got into Points and Miles.
Okay, so I have had my role for a grand total of, I think, 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Exactly. But so far, basically, I am focusing on copy editing and fact checking all of the content on the blog and possibly elsewhere over time, and just making sure that what we've got is right and we're telling people the right things, and just making sure that we're following all the compliance rules that we need to follow for the banks.
And can I just say that this helps me the most? So I am the happiest that we brought Traci on. Blog compliance is huge. And when you're writing a ton of blogs all the time, it is just a ton of work. And so this has just made my life less stressful. So thank you, Traci.
I'm glad to be here.
Mm-mm.
Well,
All
and
right, so
that was Tracy's job. Like, as Jess said, they work together as lawyers that do copy editing, right?
Some, yeah. I mean, I do research and writing, and that involves,
Okay.
a lot of copy editing type things and fact checking verification. So that's like a kind of natural skill set fit for us. So yeah, we take really complicated stuff and we make it simple and explain it. And that works for the law and it works for points.
All right. So what you may not know, or you may know if you've been around long enough, is that Traci is actually the one who got me into points and miles. So like I said, we used to work together. One day, I think it was back in like 2014 or 2015, I walked into her office and I was like, look, I know how much money you make because we probably make around the same amount. And how are you taking your family all around the world? Like the math in. And so she's the one who actually introduced me to the world of points and miles and was like, check out this blog, because at that time, Instagram, social media was not really a thing where people were sharing about award travel. And so I quickly fell down the rabbit hole. And I think it was like there was a point where I was like, "Hey, did you see you can get this much through shopping portals? And like if you go through the United Mileage," and you were like, "Wait, what? Like you're even crazier than I am now." And
Well, I
so
remember one of the first things you did was some challenge that IHG had where you had to send postcards. And for every postcard you send in, you would get X amount of points back. And you had this
Mm.
big plan to get like 2 rooms in Scotland. And I thought you were crazy because it was taking so much time to do all those postcards, but it totally paid off and you got your rooms. And so I was like, I need to keep an eye on this one. She's a little out of control.
I hand addressed
Yes.
90 index cards and sent them into IHG. And I did, in fact, get 2 rooms free at the Crown Plaza, Edinburgh in Scotland. So it was 100% worth the effort. But looking back on it, I was like, I can't believe that I did that.
Yeah.
Jess,
So
I did
anyway,
it too. I did it too. The crazy
I
ones.
I did not do that, and I don't even remember hearing it. Mom, you must not have told me, or must have been like, that sounds like a lot of work. So briefly, because I'm sure people are like wondering, like, what the heck is that? So like, give us a really brief overview of what that even was, and also like, it's never been back since. I'm
it has
assuming.
not. Okay, so it was an IHG sweepstakes. Traci, what was it called?
I don't
Do you
remember.
remember?
I thought you were crazy for
It
doing it.
It was like secret surprises or something like that. It was an IHG sweepstakes where you could enter to win by staying at IHG, but someone on the internet discovered in the terms that you could also enter by sending in an index card entry, and you were limited to 90 per person. So I sent in 90 for me and 90 for Ted. And then with each entry, you got a link to like spin a wheel, and then that determined how many IHG points you won. So Molly was like 3 at the time, and I just put her in charge of like clicking the button to spin the wheel and rack up. So anyways, we ended up earning hundreds of thousands of IHG points by doing this sweepstakes. And we didn't, I mean, I spent time obviously addressing the index cards, but we didn't stay at any IHGs or spend any money with IHG. It was really just the price of the index card and the stamps and my time to address them.
That's so
And we have
fun.
not seen, I think that was somehow a loophole that someone figured out, and we have not seen a similar sweepstakes since then.
Right.
But
You probably broke
so
the
that's
system.
so that's how I fell down the rabbit hole. But Traci, tell us how you fell down the rabbit hole.
It was kind of the same thing. Like, I think it's just this chain of oral history of I was working with someone at our same company. I think she predated you a little bit, but she did extreme couponing, Pam. And then she also did a little points and miles stuff. And she gave me a couple blogs to recommend. And like you, once I figured out what was going on, I was absolutely hooked and like obsessed. So we've been doing this for like 13 years, and you've sort of surpassed me in aggressiveness, I think, and like risk taking with some of this stuff. Cause I was like a more slow and build kind of MO, but I think like seeing what you've been able to do with some of your sort of pushing the envelope ideas, I've been like, okay, I can go a little harder with this. So it's been good overall.
I'm like the devil on Traci's shoulder.
Yes.
That's like, you really should try this. You really should do this because I did it and it worked.
That
That
doesn't
sounds
sound
right.
like you at all, Jess. That does not sound like you.
All right. So I know you've been on so many amazing trips with your family. But tell us about like one of the more memorable ones you've been on and how you did it on points and miles.
Okay. So I think I was going to talk about Australia, but then because I really loved that trip that we took and I used a really interesting trick to get us there in business class. But Megan talked about Australia already. So I'm going to switch gears and talk about our around the world trip that we took this past summer. Um, and if you're familiar with the idea of the ANA around the world ticket, we did not do that. Like we went around the world, but we did not do it with an ANA around the world ticket because those are very sort of structured and you have to be super flexible with your timing. And we also have 4 people, so we weren't going to do like business class you can't do business class for 4 people. So we did economy, but we just piecemealed together our trip because we were very inflexible on our schedule and we were very inflexible on where we wanted to go. We usually are driven by the destination and what we want to do, and we just sort of fill points in as it makes the trip happen. We're not always motivated by like, here's where the deals are. So we're just going to go there. We want to go where we want to go. So, and then we also aren't flexible on time because, our kids are in school and we had a certain concert we had to try and make the timing for, and we didn't want to risk any of that. So
Oh, what concert would that be?
it was this singer. She's blonde. You've probably heard of her. But anyway, we saw this really great blonde singer in Milan, and maybe with Jess. So we ended up. So this whole trip, we did it over 18 and a half days, and we went from Seattle to London to Milan to connecting in Singapore to Hanoi, and we went on a luxury overnight cruise on Halong Bay, and then we went back to Hanoi, down to Bali, then to Singapore, and then to Seattle. So we put that all together piecemeal. Most of our flights were points, most of our hotels were points. And I can sort of go step by step, but I don't want to, get too into the weeds on it all. But in London, we just started there because it's really easy to get flights from Seattle to London. We got British Airways flights. I think it ended up being like 30,000 points a person to fly in economy, and I think around $80 in taxes. So that was really doable. And then when we were in London, we knew that we had all these hotel stays that we wanted to be able to book. So we didn't want to it took a lot of points to do this trip. So we didn't want to use all our points all at once. So we just stayed at a place we've stayed before in London, the Premier Inn, which is, it's a very budget chain in London and all over the UK. But the great thing about them is they have family rooms that sleep 4. So we just paid out of pocket for that because it was fairly cheap and it was in a really convenient location right by Paddington Station. And it just made sense for us there. So we did really fun stuff in London that we hadn't done with the kids before. We took them to Greenwich. We went to some of our favorite restaurants. We got to straddle the prime meridian. So we were in the Eastern Hemisphere and the Western Hemisphere at the same time. So then after London, we flew to Milan. We flew into Linate on British Airways, and we used points. It didn't cost a whole lot of points because it was a pretty affordable flight. And then we stayed 2 nights at the Hyatt Centric in Milan on points. I think it was 15,000 points a room. And so because we have a family of 4 and it's European hotels, we had to get 2 rooms, which is typical. But now that our kids are older, they're both 15, it isn't bad. And it's actually kind of great because then we have 2 bathrooms and they can have their space and they have their downtime away from us. And they're old enough that it's not a big deal.
I think once you get into the teen
Yes.
years, you don't want to be all sleeping in one
Right.
room. It's just too much. They stink. You want your space. And so I totally get why people with young kids all want to be in one room. But I swear, once you get to
Yes.
the tweens and the teens, you're going to want separate
As
rooms.
soon as your kids are old enough and responsible enough that you can trust them, that they're not going to escape the room at night and they'll keep the door locked and they'll wake up when you call for them, then you're fine. I think it's actually better to have 2 rooms. It just costs more points. So we did that. And then after we booked a tour through Viator. I think we booked it through Rakuten so that we earned some points on it. But we saw the Duomo. We went to see the Last Supper, all kinds of art history stuff because we really like art. When we travel, art and maps are always a plus for us. And then we switched hotels to the Park Hyatt Milan, which was my family's first Park Hyatt. So that was really exciting. And that was actually a really big splurge because it was 40,000 points a night and we had 2 rooms. It was fun. It was really fun and worth it. I just wish we had spent more time there because the concert took up all of.
I know. That was I was sending Pam videos. I was like, Pam,
it was nice.
You have to stay here.
That's the hotel I am dying to stay at.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
And they were really generous with the benefits because we don't have globalist. We have never stayed at enough Hyatts in a year to get globalist. And so we had a guest of honor award for one of our rooms, but they don't apply it to both rooms. So we used the breakfast benefit for globalist and for guest of honor. And they actually applied it to the kids' room as well, which was a really nice surprise. We did
Nice.
not expect that. So that was really cool. I can't guarantee they'll do that every time, but it was nice that they did it for us. And then, so literally the morning after the Eras tour, and that concert was so late, we got up early and went all the way to Malpensa Airport and flew to Hanoi. So in economy. And we were on Singapore, so it was pretty nice, but it was a really long flight. And then we had a long connection. And like by the end of that flight, my ankles were like, I sent Jess a picture and my ankles were like swollen. So
It was bad. I was like, those are economy ankles.
yeah. So yeah, we have joked about me having economy ankles. So I'm going to use that as like maybe as motivation to encourage my husband to splurge for business class more often. Like, we can't have economy ankles going on. But so then we got to Hanoi, and Hanoi was really cool. The kids had never been to Asia before, so it was brand new to them. And Hanoi is like the best kind of fun chaos, like crossing the street when it's just like motorcycles and cars and everything, and you have to just sort of be brave and just go. It was
It's
really
scary. It's downright scary.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
you
it-
take your life in your hands.
Yeah,
It
but once
is
you
so
master
scary.
that, it's like you feel like you've unlocked a superpower or something. It was really cool. So, and the food was amazing, and like we took the kids to all kinds of historical sites. We went to the Hanoi Hilton, I think it's Hua Lo prison relic. That was amazing. Like that was a really, really great site to see, and the audio tour that comes with it was fantastic. Like our kids were riveted, and it was all this historical information. It was great, and the food was just perfection. Like Vietnamese food's awesome. So we had 3 nights there, and we stayed at the Pan Pacific Hotel, which we did not book on points, but we did use my husband's personal platinum Amex. They have the Fine Hotels and Resorts program and the Hotel Collection program, where if you book through those, you get a $200 statement credit, and then you also get extra benefits like a room upgrade. And I think we got a $100 credit towards hotel expenses. So we got our breakfast covered. And hotels in Southeast Asia tend to be very affordable relative to what we're used to here or in Europe. So it didn't make sense to use points there because the cash rate was so affordable. So that's what we did on that. And then we had arranged one big splurge for our trip. We booked an overnight luxury cruise of Halong Bay. So we booked it through this company. It's called Stellar of the Seas. And it was a splurge. We got 2 really big luxury cabins with balconies. Like we just kind of went all out. And for the one night, it was like $1,400 total, which I like kind of blows my mind. But, everything else was covered. So it wasn't that big of an expense. And it included,
And that's like such a bucket list item
Yes.
too. Like
Like,
that's so cool.
I've wanted to go to Halong Bay like for decades. And so I was so excited to get there. And then when we got there, it included our transfer from Hanoi. So it's like, I think it was like an hour and a half driving. It was a really, really nice luxury van transfer. It had Wi-Fi. And then on the boat, it was like an obscene level of service. Like they threw rose petals on us as we went to our cabin. Multi-course dinners. Crazy. Like it was really, really cool. They had like a little miniature golf course on the front of the boat, and there was a pool on the boat, and just anything you wanted, they would do for you. So and Halong Bay was really beautiful. I will say that one thing that surprised me was how much trash was in the water. Like people don't talk about that. And I feel like I have to mention it so that people aren't surprised, because I was really surprised. No one ever talks about that. So I'm sort of like, I don't know how I feel about us having like indirectly contributed to that, but I think it's important to be transparent about that. So we really enjoyed it, and it was a really fun experience, and we loved Vietnam. So then, okay, take a deep breath. It's a long trip, long story. So we wanted to fly to Bali next, and we could have gone back through Singapore, but the connections and everything would have taken like all day. So there was one nonstop flight on that route, and it was Vietjet, which is a Vietnamese budget airline. And we were like, okay. So we booked all 4 of us And I think it cost like $900 total. And we just flew nonstop, and it was great. Like, we had no issues with it. It was fun. And it really made our itinerary work better. We lost less time to travel and transit. We got to Bali faster. And Bali was amazing. The Andaz Bali, I think, is my new favorite Hyatt hotel ever. I cannot express enough how much I enjoyed it. The food was amazing. Their breakfast pastries were better than a lot of the breakfast pastries I've had in France. Like their croissants, the flakes, the layers, amazing. And it's
She
like,
sent me like a zoomed in picture of like
look
the
at the
flakes
layers.
of the croissant.
Yes.
You know what?
I've now put this on my list too.
Yes. You need to
I know-
go.
Yes,
You
this
definitely.
sounds great, and I want to go back to Bali because it is amazing.
The Andaz is
I'm-
pretty new. Like, it only opened, I think, in 2021. So it's, or maybe 22. It's very new. And it's actually interesting because it shares a campus with the Hyatt Regency Bali. So they're like right up against each other. And I think there's a wall down the properties for most of it, but there is a path you can go between them. So that one's much older and bigger. And it's kind of like a more of a Hyatt Regency vibe with families and stuff. And the Andaz was very chill. Everything's modern, like much quieter and sort of more luxe. And they do share some facilities, but not. So it was, their food at this at the hotel was amazing. And it was just so relaxing. And like, after all the traveling we had done, it was really nice to sort of like plop down for 4 nights and just rest somewhere and just relax, because we don't usually do that. We're usually like, go, go. But like in Bali, you can go get a 2.5-hour massage for $30. Like, that's pretty great. And we got a recommendation for a driver and guide that we hired for a day to go take us to different sites around the island. And for all 4 of us total for the day, he wanted to charge $45 for all day.
Goodness.
And it was crazy. Like, I ended up paying him more than that because we were like, this feels wrong. So, but and he was great. And like, I would not drive myself in Bali because it's on the left and the traffic is a little crazier than you're probably used to here. But it was so cool. And it was just an amazing experience. I think the whole family really enjoyed it. And I cannot rave enough about the food. And so then after Bali, we flew to Singapore, and we used IHG points to stay at the Holiday Inn Express Clark Quay. And that was the nicest Holiday Inn Express I've ever stayed at. They even had a rooftop infinity pool. So if you don't have the money to go to the Marina Bay Sands, you can go to the Holiday Inn Express and get kind of the same experience where you get to see the whole like roof line, and they have an infinity pool. So it was really nice and it was affordable. And again, we had to get 2 rooms because there were 4 of us. And then after that, we flew home.
Wait, you did the tour with Jane,
Yes,
right?
did.
The witty guide.
We hired Jane because you had recommended her. And Matthew and I had been to Singapore before, but the kids hadn't. And we knew that we didn't have a lot of time there before we flew home. So we wanted to like make the most of it. So going on the tour with her was fantastic because she packed so much in. And I planned it for the afternoon so that we would have the air conditioning in the van during the heat of the day.
Yeah.
Because Singapore's hot. Like, you think Singapore's hot and humid. Hanoi was worse. Hanoi was the most hot and humid I have ever been in my life. Singapore felt cool compared to Hanoi. And I used to live in Houston. So like, I know what I'm talking about. So don't go to Hanoi in July. That's probably not the smartest thing I've ever done in life. Okay. So then we're in Singapore. We went on the tour with the witty guide, and she was really fun, and the kids loved her, and they ended up chatting her ear off by the end of the day. And she took us to really cool food places, and we tried lots of different stuff, and we loved her. So I would totally recommend her too. And then we flew back to Seattle on Singapore Airlines nonstop, and we splurged for premium economy. And so we used miles for that, and it was really nice, but it was a 15-hour flight, and premium economy, I think, is necessary. Once you get above 13 hours, like, you need something other than economy. I've flown 17 hours in economy before, and I'm never doing that again. That was not fun. So that flight was really nice. And it was just after Singapore had introduced the like new upgraded amenities for premium economy. So we got an amenity kit. We got to book the cook, and we got champagne when we boarded the plane, which was nice. So they sort of upped their game for premium economy, and it was really, really great. So all in all, we did like travel all over the world. We just sort of put it together ourselves using what we had points and miles wise to make it happen as much as possible. But then we sort of filled in the gaps with paid pocket.
That is awesome. That is a whirlwind trip. I'm like tired just hearing about it, but that is amazing that you packed so much in. Okay, so speaking of economy and premium economy, tell us a little bit about your personal travel style.
So I think I'm probably, if I had to guess, the least likely on the team to do a positioning flight or like try to book business class at all costs. I think we're definitely usually more oriented around time and making sure that we're making the most of our time when we're at the place we're trying to go. So I just I think we've positioned once and it was fun because it was like for a new product I hadn't flown on, like Air France business class. So we did that last or earlier this year and it was fun. But we can't do that every time because it sort of eats away at your trip, right? And if you only have 1 week, then you have to prioritize. Do you want comfort or do you want to prioritize your time? And we usually ended up prioritizing our time. But the older I get, like I think I'm going to be more like Pam and start insisting more. And especially once the kids are out of the house and they're in college and maybe they can earn their own points and I'll have more points to play with. I think I'm going to be insisting on business class more so that I don't have more economy ankle situations going on. But we
And when
usually
you're traveling with me,
yes.
that
And when I'm
kinda
traveling with you, yeah, like we're going on a trip next year. We've already booked business class both ways. And my husband's like, what? It's just me. It's just one person. I can do it. It's fine. So yeah.
you're
But
like, "Jess made me do
I know.
it."
I'm like, it's for work. It's a business trip. Yeah. And I think we also are more like sometimes we'll look at the deals and see where the deals of the points will take us and let that sort of guide us. But most of the time we have specific places we want to go. And if points don't make it totally free, we just do it anyway and just sort of pay the
Yeah.
difference. But we try to use points as much as possible.
All right, last question. Where is your next trip on points and miles?
You know where my next trip is. So Jess and her husband and me and my husband, we're going to London in December, just like a couple's trip to see the city decorated for Christmas. But our next family trip is we're taking the kids to Japan for the first time in February. So we have that all booked and we're staying at Hyatt's the whole time and we're flying in economy both ways. So it'll be fun.
Economy ankles.
I
Here they
know.
come.
Well, I think it's from the West Coast. It's only maybe a 10-hour flight on average, like
Oh,
going and
that's not
coming.
bad.
So it's not too bad. Like if it were 14 or 15, I would grumble a little more and get us some lie flat, but it'll work.
And Pam, we're staying at the Park Hyatt in London.
Oh, yeah, you'll enjoy it. I just love it. Great.
All right,
Great
Tracy,
place.
thank you so much. We appreciate your help with copy editing and compliance and all the things behind the scenes so much. And you're just a great addition to the team.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, last but not least, we have Claire. Claire has been working with us. Claire, when did you start? What month was it?
The end of April of this year.
Okay, end of April 2024. So a good amount of time now. We actually met all three of these women in person a week ago, but it was so fun meeting everyone. So Claire, why don't you tell everyone what your role at TMS is and how you got started with Points and Miles?
Okay, I am the Facebook community manager. So I am in the big Facebook group answering questions and pointing people to resources on a daily basis. It's such a great group. I swear it is the nicest group of people on the internet. Everyone is so helpful and so kind. So it's a really fun job to have, actually. As for how I got into Points and Miles, I officially started in February of 2023, but my interest had been piqued the year before when I was seeing financial Instagram accounts that I follow talking about Points and Miles. And I was like, we need to get into this, but I didn't have the bandwidth at the time to learn. So I suggested to my husband, who had been telling me he wanted a hobby, and maybe he needed to learn Points and Miles. And I even offered to get him a course or something for his birthday. He politely declined. And so 6 months later, I actually bought the Travel Moms course for myself for my birthday and figured we would see how it went. So it took about 6 months.
I love that you tried to get him to do it though, because like it takes some time to figure it all out, and so that was a smart move. I'm sorry it didn't pan out for you, but I'm glad it didn't because you probably wouldn't be working with us if he had taken the course.
That is true. I would not be. But he's always been our trip planner. So I thought this is a logical extension of that. He plans our trips, so he should earn the points and miles. So he is luckily a super on-board player too. So totally open to getting whatever cards I ask him to. He just doesn't want to have to manage the learning aspect of it.
Well, we love that you are an ATA and next level student that just like we try and when we bring new team members on, we try and post the job listing with our students first, just because I feel like it's important for the person we bring on to have points and miles knowledge. Like, obviously, you can't be our community Facebook manager if you know nothing about points and miles. And so I just love that, like, y'all invest in us and then we're able to give back and bring you on to the team. And it's just, I don't know, it just makes me happy.
It
So,
makes me happy too.
It's nice too because when people come from being a student to then working with us, they understand like our style, the way that we do things versus just hiring someone that we know nothing about or knows nothing about us and having to kind of guide them along. So it's been really nice. Like Claire and Megan were both students. Traci, as y'all have already heard, was like doing this for 100 years. So she didn't quite need the courses, but
all right. So tell us about what has been your favorite points and miles trip that you've taken so far.
I feel like this is going to sound so boring compared to what I'm sure Megan and Traci have already shared, but I'm a mom of 5 and we don't live in a very big house. So I do not need any more toys, any more anything. So a couple years ago, we started taking our kids on birthday trips instead of doing gifts. And so points and miles has been such a great way to supplement that and make it so that we can go on more exciting trips than we had originally planned. Our original thought was like, we'll go get a hotel near California, in California near the beach, and that'll be their trip. Or we'll drive up to Flagstaff for a couple nights and that'll be their trip. So this is allowing us to take them on more exciting trips. So my favorite points and miles trip so far has been taking my 2 girls who are 17 and 14 to Waco, Texas to go to Magnolia. They are both Chip and Jo fans and they were like, that would be such a fun trip, Mom. So it was really easy to do with points and miles. We flew into Austin. You can fly into Austin or Dallas, either one. Austin just happened to be a little bit cheaper and have flights that we liked a little better. So we flew into Austin on Southwest. I did not have a companion pass at the time, so it was about 46,000 points for the 3 of us, but well worth it. We picked up a rental car. We spent the day in Austin and then drove to Waco and stayed 3 nights in the Hyatt Place Waco for 8,000 points a night. So 24,000 points total for that stay. And we shopped and we ate and we slept and we had so much fun. And my girls keep asking, when can we do that trip again?
That's amazing. I love it.
yeah, I love that too. And I love that each kid is now getting to do these birthday trips that are like more than you expected. Do your other kids already like have trips planned? And is this like every year they get a birthday trip or is this like a certain age? How are you guys doing that?
They get a trip every year because then I get to
Nice.
travel multiple times a year. So my 2 girls both have spring birthdays, so we tend to pair them up. My 2 boys are, their birthdays are a couple months apart, so we pair them up. And then the baby is, baby. She's 5, so she's not really a baby anymore, but her abilities and what she enjoys are so different from everyone else that she tends to get her own trip with us. So that's
Yeah, that
fun.
makes sense.
That's awesome.
And they
That
all
sounds so
have-
fun. I love that you let them, lead the way and choose the destination and you can make it happen with points and miles.
And not just for my
Claire,
own kiddos. Can I tell one quick story?
yes.
Yeah.
My cute little nephew, he lives up in Utah and he was 3 at the time and he called me up and he's like, I want you and Nora to come to my birthday party. And I was like, cool, buddy, let me make that happen. And it cost less than 7,000 points and a companion pass to get me and my, at the time, 4-year-old up to Utah just to go to his birthday party. Like that was the entire point of the trip. And I loved that I got to say yes because I had points and miles.
And I'm guessing before points and miles, you probably would have had to say no to that kind of trip just for a birthday party.
Yeah, just definitely would not have been possible for a 4-year-old. Like, I love him. He's so sweet. But for a 4-year-old birthday party, no, I wasn't going to be able to afford plane tickets last minute and all the things. So it was wonderful to be able to say yes to him.
I was going to ask you actually to share that story because Claire and I were together last weekend. Well, for you listening, it'll be like, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, but last weekend in real life, Claire and I were together in the Capital One Lounge and she was telling me that. And I was like, that is amazing. You need to share that story on the podcast because people just think, oh, like it's got to be this big, extravagant trip and this really like amazing destination. And that's totally not the point in Points and Miles. Like it can be, it's really cool. But like those types of things, like were you going to go spend time with family that you wouldn't have, you get to go to, was he turning 3 or 4, did you say?
He turned 4.
He was turning 4, like just so cute to be able to be like, you know what, we're going. We can do that because we have points. And so I love that story that you shared. I think it's so cute.
That's
Are-
so cute. Just making memories with the family. That's what it's all about. We love this.
All right, Claire, what would you say is your points and miles travel style, and what do you tend to prioritize when it comes to points and miles?
Okay, so my travel style, I've kind of explained a little already. We're really into domestic travel. We love when we can just drive there. So trips to California, I love the beach. So any chance to go to the beach. My kids love Disney and Universal. So a lot of our travel has been hotel based. We love Hyatt. We love our Hyatt points. And so places that we can get to quickly and easily, especially for taking all of our children, which is not typically how we travel. We like to break it up and enjoy quality time with each of them. But it's nice to be able to get there quickly, stay in a hotel that we paid for on points that we know is going to be clean. We have spent years staying in really crummy Disneyland hotels, and it is so nice to stay in a nice, clean hotel that has breakfast, with great service. So that has been awesome. It doesn't mean that we don't want big grand trips. Those are coming. We're still working on those. So we have some bigger trips coming up in the future. But for now, just the being able to go places close to home and stay for free has been awesome.
And I don't think we mentioned, so Claire is based in Phoenix, the Phoenix area. And so she's lucky because there are so many great options in California, like within driving distance of you. So that's pretty fortunate that you can drive to all those places pretty easily because those are like some of our favorite hotels that are within
Same.
driving distance of you.
We love California and it's so easy to get to.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of things coming up, what is your next trip that you have planned on Points and Miles?
Okay. I'm so excited for this trip. So a little bit of background. I am actually a photographer, have been since my oldest was probably 2 years old. And I joke that I've been working towards this moment my whole life. She is a senior in high school. And so I said to her, where do you want to go and take your senior pictures? And 2 years ago, I would have had to say, in the Phoenix Valley. Where in the Phoenix Valley would you like to go do your senior pictures? But instead, I was able to tell her she could pick anywhere in the world. And that was amazing. So she has picked London and Paris. She's a big Disney fan. So we're going to do Disneyland Paris on her actual 18th birthday. And then London holds a special place in my heart because my mom is actually from England and her family all still lives there. So we're going to get to see a great grandmother and some aunts and uncles and do her senior pictures in London. And I cannot even believe that I'm making this happen for her.
That
We
is
love
so,
this
so
so
cool.
much.
I can't wait to see the pictures. I feel like you're going to have to like take them and immediately edit them and send them to us because I don't want to wait until. But that is so like, it's just, I don't know. That just like makes me happy and feel good that you can be like, you can take your senior pictures anywhere in the world. Like when I was when I was graduating high school, I had never even flown on a plane before, you know? And so to be able to just tell someone like, we can take your senior pictures anywhere in the world is just amazing. And I'm so happy for you and for her that you're able to make that happen.
I think I've set the bar high though, because my almost 15-year-old is like, oh, cool, I want to go to Tahiti for mine. So I'm like, right, we're going to start working on that now.
Oh, you might
Smart
have to make a
girl.
list. You might have to start making of these 5 places. Where do you want to go?
Yes. Narrow it down.
All right. Well, Claire, we appreciate everything you do for us so much. We know that there are so many people in our Facebook group, which we love, but we know that it's a lot of work to, keep that ship sailing. And so we appreciate your hard work there so, so much.
You.
We really do. And I just want to also say that in our Facebook group, we try to really keep it points related. And so sometimes Claire, takes a comment off. Don't be mad at her. Look at her. She's the nicest girl. She's so sweet and fun and stuff. She's not doing that to be mean. It's just because we want to keep it points and miles related. Where it says Travel Mom Squad, and sometimes people get confused and think we're just all about mom travel and points and stuff and everything. So just don't take it personal. She doesn't mean anything by it. She's just following what we're asking her to do. And we really appreciate you working with us, Claire.
Yeah.
So that we hope you all enjoyed meeting some of the people behind the scenes at TMS. We couldn't put all of our content out without them, and we love working with all three of them. If you'd like to learn how you can travel with points and miles like Megan, Traci, and Claire do, sign up for our free webinar, How to Get Your Next Vacation for Nearly Free. We'll put a link in the show notes. Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much for listening to Points Talk with the Travel Mom Squad. Make sure to hit the subscribe or follow button from wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. Want to start jet setting even faster? Follow the links in the show notes to learn about everything we discussed in today's episode. And to stay connected and follow along, follow us on Instagram at Travel Mom Squad. We can't wait to see where in the world Points and Miles take you.